Good afternoon. I will try to be quiet to not interfere with the post-lunch, post-jet lag naps that some people are certainly going to want to take. Thank you for the friendly welcome. And before starting, I'd also like to say thank you to Bombora for not just for a great event, but for giving Siemens the honor of being able to come here and tell our story. There are several Siemens people here who I'd like to say hi to, and you should maybe get to know. They're the ones who helped make this project happen. And then finally, my presentation coach is here, my dear wife, Debbie, who listened to this thing so many times and asked brilliant questions that she became an honorary B2B marketer. How many of you, please put your hand up, how many of you know Siemens? All right, leave your hand up if you also know Siemens Digital Industries. So we'll start with just a tiny bit of background. So this is our corporate mission, transforming the everyday to create a better tomorrow. And it's very motivating for us. We actually, you can ask everybody from Siemens here, we like working for this company. It feels good to get up every day and try to behave this way. And we use that to drive across all of our businesses, one of which is this Siemens Digital Industries. Now, Siemens is a gigantic firm, and we're just one piece of it, but you can see from the numbers, we're a fairly large and profitable business in our own right. In fact, we're number one in the world in these areas that we choose to focus on. We call it industrial automation, industrial software, headline digital industries. We're number one in what we call factory automation, number one in motion control, number one in industrial software. So it's a great position to have. On the other hand, it doesn't carry over into the US. And there's historical, structural reasons why that's the case. But the point is, for those of us who get up every day and work for digital industries in the US, we face a pretty substantial problem. Okay, we're playing from behind, and not just a little bit behind, we're way behind. There is a massive share gap. So one of the buzzwords or words in the title and the description of this presentation had to do with entrenched, in the trenches. This is a deeply entrenched competitor. They're the market leader here, as I said, and the cost of switching is very, very high. You don't just wake up one. It would be like if your entire company is on Windows and you woke up tomorrow, everybody woke up tomorrow in your company and you were suddenly on Mac. That's a big change, right? You can't call support anymore because they just found out about the change too. There's not training documentation except what the vendor provides, right? So this is a really emotional issue when people go to change automation vendors. So it has to be approached. We've found, in order to win, in order to unseat the competitor in an account they've held for a long time, we have to have some very specific things that line up for us. The field is absolutely not level. I tried to come up with a diagram that brought this to life. We basically play on the low end of the field here, we at Siemens. Okay, and we try to keep the competitors from scoring a win. Okay, so you can imagine, every once in a while we do get a penalty kick up near the goal and we can put one in. But for the most part, this is what it feels like, and this is what it has felt like for decades to be Siemens in the US. In order to now decode or begin to share what has to change, how we can go about winning one of these deals that the incumbent holds, we'll take a look at what happens during an automation project. A major automation project is 9 to 18 months long. Some of you have sales cycles that long? Yeah? So you understand, one day the company decides to fund a new automation project. They're going to build a new plant, and the capital committee just approved $250 million or something like that. Then they get to work. The day before that, nobody was working on the new factory because there was no capital funding for it. But now they're off to the races. And while it looks like a long project, The 9 to 18 months evaporates very quickly. It's a race for these people, for the engineers, the purchasing people who have to support this, make the decisions, and make the thing happen. For a vendor like us, in an account that we're not in, we have no visibility until the RFP comes out, or the RFQ. So, we've all heard the serious decisions saying, well, it's 65% of the way through a project before the customer wants to talk to a vendor. That's what that means. It's not that they don't want to talk to a vendor. It's that they don't want to talk to anybody except their incumbent. Because the incumbent's right there blowing in their ear from day one, influencing the shape of the project against us, and smartly against all the other competitors. So when that RFP comes out, that automation specification is written for somebody else to win. We might be able to do it, but it's not going to be in our sweet spot. And from our point of view, it's not going to be in the customer's sweet spot either. We're number one in the world for a reason. Our technology is really powerful, and when people use it, they get better results. But we can't very well tell them, hey, let's go back 9 months and start over. It just doesn't work that way. This incumbent bias is such a problem. At the very beginning of the project, you might actually have a window where it's relatively low. They might if we've done a good job of content marketing, of insinuating an idea of what we can do in their minds the day before the project's funded, then the day after the project is funded, they might very well listen to us if we called them, right? But that doesn't last for very long. The incumbent bias, because as I mentioned, once this thing gets going, time is of the essence, and they need to close ranks around a solution and get it done. So, just for perspective, if we don't get in the first 10% of that entire project life cycle, we might as well not even play. There's a very, very slim chance that we're going to be able to win that project. Now, in order to take this a step further in understanding what we can do in that first 10%, let's take a look at the addressable market. For us, it's any company that manufactures anything in the United States at any moderate level of scale. They all need automation. And so we can look at that, and it's a big market. If it's not the number one industrial automation market in the world, it's number two. Okay, so there's a lot of activity in this market. And so that's good for us, right? We get a lot of at-bats. Well, no. Because at any given point in time, a very small portion of that addressable market has a project. I mean, they don't build a new plant every day. They don't build a new line in an existing factory every day. They don't upgrade the entire automation. They don't migrate upward their entire automation scheme every day, right? So really, and this is actually being generous, I think the number is really higher than 90. Let's say 10% of the market is in a major automation project right now. Great, that's still a big market, it's still a big opportunity. But remember that last slide? If we're not in the first 10%, just mathematically speaking then, 90% of all those active projects are off limits. The 90% can't even possibly be a lead because they're not spending anything, they're not buying anything. And the 9% of the remainder, the 9% might as well not be a lead. I mean, we can't call that a lead. That's a lead that'll be rejected. So what we really have on any given day is a very thin sliver of the market that we can shoot at to try to hit that 10%, that first 10% of the project. That's our opportunity. That's what we need to figure out. We tried to figure this out for a long time. We've had many years of high rejected leads, high rejected lead rates by our sales teams. Here's some marketing, here's the truck, back it up. Here's all the marketing qualified leads today. This one looked at a video for 10 seconds. This one attended a webinar. Look, this one opened 3 of our emails. This one, hit a gated asset. No. We still had all these causes and more, which maybe you have some of the same causes for marketing qualified leads to not become sales accepted leads. And it's really even worse than that, because every time we say, okay, come on, let's get in a meeting, let's fix this problem. Okay, we're going to make a new investment. We're going to do demand gen better than we've ever done it before. And then when we don't, it further deteriorates the trust that needs to be there in order for the marketing and sales organizations to deliver a steady stream of pipeline opportunities. And eventually, it didn't become clear until the strange magic. What's going on here? So look at this. Before the buyers are in market, so remember, the capital committee of the company has to fund $250 million before the engineers can go out and start writing an automation spec. The day before it's funded, the engineers don't have anything to go work on. They're just out learning. Engineers are always learning, right? Engineers are just reading up on what's new, what's cool, what are other people doing. They're not acting like buyers. They're acting like engineers who want to preserve the sharpness of their minds and the sharpness of their skill set. That's why they come to webinars. That's why they sometimes open an email. Right? Before they're actually in market, before that money's funded, they're not behaving like buyers. So demand generation, while it can find them, can't call them buyers. It can't validly say that they're exhibiting buying behavior. And after they get in market, what we found is whatever you call traditional, some of the things I've been saying, some of the things we all use, the traditional approaches to, casting a net, finding some people, nurturing them some more, nurturing them, scoring them up, that can't all happen in the first 10%. We're going to be much further into the project before we get the signal that we've got a hot lead. And like I said, then it's too late. So what do we do about that? We wrote a problem statement. And when we get to the end, I'll reiterate how important it is to be precise about a problem statement. But this is our problem statement. How are we going to produce highly qualified leads in the first few days of a new automation project? And how are we going to do that repeatably? How are we going to do that at scale? And all the evidence so far is to the contrary. We can't do it. We can't do it. We get lucky every once in a while, penalty kick from the other side of the field. So our solution ended up, here's a concise statement of our solution. We're going to use non-traditional demand generation approaches. We're going to do demand generation, may use some of the same tools, but we're going to guide them differently. We're going to point them differently by using intent data. So we began thinking this way 3 or 4 years ago. We began succeeding at this about 2 years ago. And I'll tell you more about that too. Maybe we would all agree that what really has to happen in order for us to generate high quality opportunities, pipeline, is to deliver, we heard about this earlier, to deliver the right message at the right time to the right person. Until now, the right person is anybody in our marketing database. The right message is anything we're able to say. And the right time is all the time, right? And that's how we ended up there. But really, intent data helps us solve all three of these circles differently. The most direct and obvious way is that spiking intent, surging corporate intent, gives us the right time every single week. We look at it every single week. For the entire addressable market. It gives us the right time, and it gives us the right topic. So we not only know there's a surge, a spike, we know what the topic is. we know what the metro area is. We know how much of a surge. There's a lot that helps with this. But what Bombard can't tell you and shouldn't tell you is who was the person that created the intent signal. And that's who you really want. That's who we need to find, that person or those people that collaborated to create that intent signal in their company. But intent data can help with that. And that's how our solution concept focuses. This is where we are going to apply non-traditional demand generation and guide it with the very same intent data that gave us the right time and the right message. Let's stick with maybe you all already use intent data in the way we have used it, but just in case, I'm going to level set with a couple slides here. Okay, so this is the right message in the right time, spiking intent data, and we're going to do this for the US Navy. We can do it for anybody in the addressable market, but we're in San Diego, and that's just beautiful anyhow, to me. So let's take a look at US Navy intent in a particular week. This is what we see. Okay, this list is really long. There's a lot of people that work for the Navy, and they spend a lot of money. So there's a lot of intent. You can see in this column, it's all new. New. This just happened last week, okay? And here it is today. So as an automation company, as Siemens Digital Industries, you look at this and you're like, because, I'm the person who sells the I/O modules. And oh my goodness, I get to call San Diego, Charleston, I get to call all these places or email all these places or go fishing in all these places. And I'm actually wondering with another part of my head, why are they all suddenly? Is there an I/O project throughout the whole Navy here that I need to know about? So you begin, our salespeople really understand the market. They understand our products, and yours do too, I'm sure. And so this tells them a lot more than just I/O module Los Angeles, right? They begin to form ideas. There's another way. So this is all sorted by topic name. We track over 100 topics. This is now sorted by metro area, the same data sorted by metro area. So if you're a geographically oriented person, look what you can learn about Atlanta. This means something. The fact, let's even look at it. I want to look at Dallas-Fort Worth. Ethernet networking, fixed wireless packet switching, and VFDs. That means something to our business. So we know that there is a wireless communications project taking place there, and we wonder how that might relate to this VFD interest, which is a different thing, right? But the point is, we look at this on a spreadsheet. We have looked at this on a spreadsheet for 2 years. We've done more than just spreadsheet. It's now integrated in CRM, but the spreadsheet is so illustrative. It makes the opportunity so clear. This is what we react to. So, thinking back a few slides, somebody funded something at the Navy. The engineers got to work. They created intent signals, and now we're going to call them this week. But who? Maybe I have a really large number of contacts for the Navy. If I'm good at what I do, I probably do. A large number of the right contacts in a lot of these places in the CRM system, and I can get to work. But if I don't, this is where we have to now apply some rather novel demand gen approaches driven or guided by intent data. So how are we going to identify the intent signal? We can use a lot of different approaches. This is just a short list. These are all approaches that we use for other things, right? This is pretty traditional stuff, but we're going to use it in an untraditional way. And two things to keep in mind: it has to happen immediately. We can't take our time to build a campaign. We can't go build assets. This needs to be activated tomorrow. And we have the luxury of being able to be direct. We don't have to be like, well, have you really thought about the future of automation in the US Navy? It'll be like, no, hey, when are you going to replace your old I/O modules? You should call us. You can be that direct, and you should be that direct when you know what the topic is. I think it was Eric this morning who said unwanted, I wrote it down, unwanted emails, you know? These are wanted emails. If you email somebody who created that intent signal, if it lands in the right inbox, it's a wanted email. It's irresistibly clickable. All right, so an example of doing this in the real world. We did this with LinkedIn. Here's a mouthful. This is what it means to have non-traditional demand gen guided by intent data. This is programmatic, intent-driven, micro-targeted LinkedIn lead gen ads. Okay. We have arranged for Bombora to directly feed a tool we use. Maybe some of you use Sprinkler. We have campaigns pre-set up in Sprinkler for various topics. The assets are there. Micro-targeting information is there, so that when a certain topic spikes in a certain metro area, here's one of our topics, RTLS, real-time locating systems. This was a real example. This is the one we did. We have account-specific ads ready to activate. We can now micro-target to the business in the right metro area to the right job titles, which we already know what the job titles are, right? It's our business to know, so we know. Well, and then we can do something like this. You won't be able to read this well, but this is a very direct frontal approach with the company's name in it and the product name in it that's surging. It's irresistibly clickable for the right person. If they created the intent signal, they're going to click on this, and they'll tell us anything we ask them. We can ask them, please write 3 sentences about the application you're trying to solve with RTLS, and then tell us if you'd prefer us to contact you by mail or phone, and then give us your phone number or your email address. And they'll do it. And they do it. And just in this one, which was the first one we did, in the first week, because of that being right, 6 leads in the first week. But it gets even more interesting because the cost per click was pretty low. For LinkedIn, for us at least, that's a pretty low cost per click when we were typically benchmarking at about 25. And it's just because that ad isn't being fed in front of a bunch of people who just want to get rid of it, right? It's preferentially showing up with people who need to see that information. This one's fun too. This is a second example. So, anybody here ever used telequalification to try to generate qualified leads? Yeah. Is it cheap? Is it expensive? Yeah, it's expensive. It's not cheap. Now, I think we know the answer now to why. Because even when we would have a couple years ago, go to build our audience for a telequalification campaign or a telequalification effort, we're going to focus on the entire addressable market. Call them all. And we'll get rewarded with a 1% sales accepted lead rate. That's about what I'm used to getting historically with a broad-based TQ campaign. On the other hand, any idea what you'd get there? If you just TQ'd that 1% segment that you can identify with intent data, play high-low with me, what do you think the accepted rate is? Who said 90? Okay. Cheater. You do the math, that's a 99% improvement in telequalification efficiency. It's a ton cheaper. It's like you're in $15 a lead territory, $15 per accepted lead territory, or 20 on something like that. Now, okay, so that's what we did, and that's how it works. Those are 2 examples. We do many other things. But, oh yeah, I want to tell, so this is a true story. This is actually what happened. This is one of the outcomes, one of the ones that we're most astonished with. It's strange magic, and it's crystal ball, and it's everything else we've been talking about. So in July, I'm not putting the year, in July, because you might figure out what happened, we observed, and we made sure our salesperson saw it, 3 topics with high intent at a certain company. And, so the salesperson, very good salesperson, had contacts from a prior effort made at that company where he lost. Okay, it was one of those ones where we got in too late and lost. And then they said that to him. You could have knocked him over with a feather. It's like, the guy literally told me my timing is perfect because they're getting ready to make this earth-changing in their industry, earth-changing investment, and they'd like to talk to me. So he went into a meeting. Over the next several months, he went to a lot of meetings with them, and he got really well embedded there. He continued to use intent data. Well, he learned that they weren't very happy with the incumbent. That was nice. And he also got to see what other competitors they were beginning to look at. So now he's already in here for a month talking to them, and he can just sit back and look at the intent reports and say, oh, they're now talking to him. Well, let me get back in there. So he goes back in and says, I've been thinking about some of these other vendors you might consider using, and the guy's a master. And it worked because that next April, he got a contract. So now we definitely have the pole position on this. They've never used us before. All we have to do is prove that our technology works as well as we said it would in their application, which we now know very well. Well, it worked. He continued monitoring, stayed proactive with this whole thing. The proof of concept came out beautifully, and then the miracle happened. I can't even tell you I'm not permitted to tell you the number of zeros, the magnitude of this order, but I can tell you it changed everything for this project. My phone and Allie's phone started ringing the next day. Wait, we just heard from so-and-so that you closed this deal and it all came from this intent data, from this Bombora data? Wait, I know you tried telling me about this before, but can you tell me again how that... That was the day that this project landed on our most senior executives' radar screens, and they began talking about it in every quarterly sales update call. This is how it became so well accepted globally for us. And this is a revenue stream. This isn't a one-time contract. This is a company that builds things for other companies, and they build them every year. And they're growing. It's a real growth part of the industry. All we did here is sold them some equipment, but we do services too. And we have more equipment for different applications than what we sold them in that initial deal. So this thing gets longer. It has a temporal growth curve, but it also has a horizontal growth curve as we bring more of the portfolio in. So this is why the whole company woke up on that day. So here's the business impact we've tracked so far. Very shorthand, right? I can't really be getting more specific than this. This is the first marketing project that I think many of us at Siemens have ever done where you can actually see the impact of it on the top line. We generated so much revenue from Bombora leads. These are directly attributable to Bombora intent data, not to anything else. You can actually see it move the top line. No lie, there's 400 new pipeline opportunities since we began the project with companies we hadn't done business with. Sometimes it's a company we've done business with, but they've gone cold. And suddenly they're awake again, and we can jump in again. And most of these were competitive takeaways. Ones where we got in the first 10% and had that precious early initiative to change the game. Our win-loss rate is 94% on the intent-based opportunities that are logged in the CRM system. And they're logging them way early. This is not like they wait to see, oh, okay, I'm going to win this one, so I'm going to put it in CRM. No, Allie makes sure these go in as soon as they become glimmers in their eye. So this is a legitimately high win rate. You've seen some of the cost reduction stuff on the two examples I used, the CPC and then the TQ cost. And really, in fact, there's almost no marketing investment that we make in these leads. This goes straight to sales. This is bypassing the whole funnel. And these are the things people say. We go to market through partners. Other people go to market through partners? Yeah? Yes, you do. So your partners want leads. And we've never been able to give our partners leads. We can now give our partners leads, and they're blown away. So we have such cred walking in now with a new list of leads, and they jump on them and they attack them because they now have gotten. So this thing just keeps multiplying, through all our channels. And then, of course, this is the fun one, I guess. Every week, the intent data comes out every week. If it's ever late, somebody here in the back of the room hears about it, or I hear about it. So that tells you what's in their minds, how they really feel about it. So we have more to do. We have a global leader, that's Allie Burke. She's in the back of the room. She's ensured that this is now integrated with CRM. She's ensured that it's now able to be self-served through, a BI interface to a data lake. That's all great. We've initiated a global rollout, not just in our digital industries business, but in our other main industrial business. We're constantly hearing about new use cases where people are endeavoring to use the intent data. So you think about us, we have to take business away from an entrenched competitor, but what if we're the market leader somewhere? Well, what we want to do is prevent the competitor from trying to take that business away from us. So it's a different use case, and it's a different application of the same database. And then we even have pilot use cases with non-business groups. So for example, our government affairs group, we have a government affairs group, we're that big. We have a big government affairs group, and they're active at the federal level in the US, they're active at the state level in the US, sometimes even in cities. And they're like, wait a minute, I can see when the city of Tallahassee is suddenly exploring water infrastructure solutions? Well, I can call that, I know that mayor. I can call that mayor, and I can talk to them and invite them to our water demo lab, right? So once the different groups understand the power in this data, they begin thinking about how can they use that in their own, somewhat unorthodox, right? Government affairs using intent data, but in their own way. We are now looking at implementing this with some display ads. That's something that, Allie's driving that. I only know that it exists. I don't know exactly where it stands, so if you're interested, you could talk to Allie about that. And then, so meanwhile, we love our marketing people in our businesses. We're not marketing, by the way. So somebody said earlier today, it's fun to be able to stand in that middle ground where you're neither sales nor marketing, and you get to say things, and maybe people will listen to you instead of pushing you away. So we get to do that because in Siemens, most of our marketing happens in our individual business lines, okay? So our individual business lines are still running webinars, they're still doing nurture campaigns, pretty much the way they have, but they're starting to crack now. They're starting to see that they're actually, this could advantage them substantially. So when that starts happening, when this whole machine comes together and becomes intent-driven and is willing to walk away from some of the sacred old practices, I think we're going to see another burst. Final slide, I believe. What we learned. Okay, I said it before, precisely state the problem. If you don't precisely state the problem, you won't know, well, I shouldn't phrase it like you won't know. We can't solve a problem that we can't clearly articulate. So we spend extra time making sure that we're crystal clear on what the problem is we're trying to solve. We heard this before. Start manual and stay manual until you're sure you know what you're doing. I still prefer to be manual on this. I still like to see the spreadsheet. It sings a song. It shows me patterns that I can't see other ways. And that even in the year 2023, I think that's okay because it gets a result. Okay, there may be different opinions of this, but I'm just going to tell you, nowhere in any of this did we use first-party data. Nowhere in any of this did we nurture. There have been no nurture campaigns. Nowhere did we gate any assets. All the things you're supposed to do, we didn't do any of them. Like I said, we skipped the funnel with this. Oh, this is fun. Talked about measures earlier. So I'd use this example. If I'm going to do a targeted email campaign to find that one person who created the intent signal on RTLS, and I micro-target it down, and the most I can micro-target is I'm going to have to send 1,000 emails to find that one person. And if I find that one person, why do I care about the open rate? I expect 999 of them to not be open before I even send them. So it really forces you to think through, what do I want to measure and why do I want to measure it? Somebody said, people do what you pay them to do, whether you want them to or not, And we worked with the other intent vendors for years, and we couldn't get this result. So for us, it was when we started working with Bombora, this started working consistently. We had a flash or two in one of our earlier efforts with a different vendor, but it wasn't consistent, and it wasn't scaling. So that means you got to stick with it. This does what works for us. It works in this use case, and I have no reason to believe it wouldn't work in use cases that had a similar, let's say, architecture about them. So that's it. And some of us are here, and that's my LinkedIn profile, if you want to talk more about it. And there's 1 minute and 39 seconds, Mark, if you want to use that for anything.
We're not going to have time, but I'm going to ask one question, and then anybody's going to attack you afterwards. And you really framed the problem statement so succinctly. Was that universally known inside, or did you have to do a lot of education around that particular issue?
It's counterintuitive that such a compact statement can carry so much corrective power. So I had to do a lot. We had to do a lot of education. We had to keep bringing it back up. No. Here's the problem we're not trying to generate better leads. We're trying to identify the first moments of a new automation project. It's you will solve a different problem if you're trying to generate better leads versus find that first moment. So no, and it's still today, I guess maybe Yilkin and Ali would agree, it's still today merits repeating, because people, in the press of their daily business life, with 1,000 things they have to juggle, can easily just fall back into that same inertia of trying to, hey, I used to solve that problem this way, I'll solve it that way again. So yeah, in my view, we have to put that on a big billboard and keep pointing people at it.
Thank you.
You're
folks.
welcome.
Thank Dan.
Thank you.
Ali. You're going that way.
Thank you.